Hello, my lovely people. I have just a little more fun one for you this time. I guess they're all kind of fun, but this one is The Ninth Guest from 1934. Yeah, so it's -2 degrees here right now where I am, so it's time to cozy up with a good old classic movie. And this one is perfect for that kind of vibe. So in this film, 8 people are invited to a fancy penthouse apartment for dinner. I think they're meant to be staying there overnight as well. So they don't really know each other or who the host is. And after dinner, there's a radio in the corner. I guess it probably would have even been called a wireless at this time, of all things. And it tells them that there are actually 9 guests for dinner, but the 9th guest is death. So basically, they're all going to be killed off one by one at this point, unless they can figure out who the killer is and cheat death before they're all killed. So the stars here are Donald Cook. He's from Public Enemy. He's probably one of his most famous ones. And Genevieve Tobin. And yeah, they're kind of our protagonists, I guess, and they have a bit of a well, like not a love affair, but you know, flirtation, I guess. Would you call it flirtation if you're invited to like a murder dinner? It just feels a bit like maybe not the right term, but you get the idea. This was directed by Roy William Neill. He did a bunch of stuff. He's not one of this sort of big shiny directors, you know, like Hitchcock or whatever, but he did quite a lot of films. He did a whole series in the 40s of the Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes films, as well as a lot of other things. So he's kind of the perfect director for this kind of film. The film itself is an adaptation of the 1930 Broadway play, which has the same name, The Ninth Guest. That was by Owen Davis, and that in turn was an adaptation of a 1930 novel, The Invisible Host, by Bruce Manning and Gwen Bristow. So I think you can kind of, sometimes with these films, for me, when they're adapted from a stage play, there's this kind of like locked room feel to them. I think Rope is like that for me, which I kind of, depending on the mood I'm in, I actually don't mind that. I think it bothers me more in modern films than in, you know, older ones for some reason. So I guess, you know, in older films, they didn't have loads of location changes as much as they do now or whatever. So maybe it's something like that. Yeah, something you might notice about this film is that it's a lot like Agatha Christie's novel, and there's a film adaptation of that as well. Her novel came out in 1939, and then there were none. And the plot is very, very similar. And this actually predates her plot, but her story is more well known. So, and probably, I think her book is maybe a little bit less dramatic. This is kind of a bit of a dramatic movie. What else did I want to tell you about this movie? Plenty of things. So first up, Donald Cook. I don't have loads of stories about the stars for this one. They both seemed a bit more stable than some of the famous people I talk about here. But Donald Cook was married several times from what I could tell. And last of all, he was married to a princess. So that's kind of fun. And Genevieve Tobin, she's mostly did sort of comedic type roles. And yeah, when I was looking her up, apparently critics at the time thought she was very well liked, but she was considered more stylish than talented, which I was like, that's a bit rude. And then I thought about it, I'm like, maybe it's a little bit true. I don't know, maybe a little bit. But it's not a problem for me. I love a stylish film. So yeah, this film isn't really like a game changer. Like, it's not a Citizen Kane or whatever. But, and if I'm honest, like, the acting's a little bit wooden, even for its era. Like, film was still fairly young, so sometimes some actors are a little bit wooden, but this one, you do kind of notice it. But it did come out during the golden age of detective and mystery writing, which was when, I mean, I guess it's a whole thing in itself about when detective fiction started and that kind of thing, but it was a very classical era, shall we say, for the genre in fiction. And, you know, it's kind of the era of some of the most famous of Agatha Christie or Dorothy Sayers kind of work. And this film came out in 1934. And when you think about it, Sherlock Holmes stories were still coming out into the 1920s. So it's not that much later than the Sherlock Holmes. They was still being printed, you know. Yeah, so the film in a whole has kind of an ambitious feel, which I think is kind of what made me want to share it with you guys more than it being, you know, I mean, I think it's kind of a special little film, but it's maybe not as big and sort of lavish as some of the other ones that I've brought to your attention. But there's some really fun stuff in it. So first of all, like, the interiors are probably the first thing. You know, this is the mid-30s Great Depression era, and a lot of films had a focus on like kind of a dreamish quality. People couldn't afford stuff, so films had interiors that people couldn't have, or happy endings, or, you know, comedy and stuff like that. So it's not unusual for a film in the 30s to have these lavish interiors that kind of, I think, gave people an escape from everyday life. But it's still really nice to see it anyway, just from a perspective of being interested in different eras. The furnishings are amazing, and it generally has kind of a lavish style to the look of the film. But it's also like little moments. So at the start of the film, it opens on girls working in a call center, or like I guess they're like the operators, and they had to do that thing, you know, where they would like connect a call by literally unplugging a cable and replugging it in and putting the call through, like, physically. So that was kind of something cool to see. Also the marcelled hair, that's like the waves sort of put into the hair. And people talk about going to a party in this, and they're going to make whoopee at the party, and it's going to be a swell party as well. So there's that. There's some good foreshadowing. It's a little heavy-handed, but there's some good foreshadowing. Just to sort of go back to that call center that I mentioned, the operator takes a call, and she's going to put it through. And this is where the invites to this party come through over the telephone, which I think is kind of fun because not everybody had a telephone in the 1920s. So it would have been a bit like, you know, the height. Like, this would have been like a tech kind of a movie for people of this era, like, which is kind of quaint. Anyway, the operator goes to put the voice through, and then after she's put the call through, the operator says she thought that his voice sounded like death. It's very dramatic. His voice sounded like death. But then she said, but it can't be because he's hosting a party. So I thought that was kind of a fun little line. There's a little bit of social kind of stuff as well, where like there's really snooty people at this party, which kind of helps when they get killed off because you're not too attached to them, I guess. Or maybe even at the time, maybe it was satisfying to see some of these people get a comeuppance, maybe. So yeah, there's plenty of tension between characters. Like, one woman says that she draws the line at draws the social line at mixing with a daughter of a disgraced senator kind of thing. And it's funny because somebody points out her own, you know, moral compass isn't exactly pointing north or whatever. So yeah, there's the other things are the way that it's filmed. There's a really nice play of light and shadow. There's a moment where a hand kind of comes towards an unsuspecting face sort of over the shoulder, and it feels very fresh and new for that era, with the shadow kind of coming in, and of course the person doesn't see it or feel it because it's a hand in a shadow, you know. So it's yeah, it's nice little like playing with the medium, having some fun with you know, high angles and, you know, light and shadow and stuff like that. Chiaroscuro, as it's sometimes called. So it is, it feels kind of fresh when you watch it. And yeah, I think the other last little thing, just a little shout out to the radio. So when they are at the dinner and there's a bit of sort of social shuffling and whatever, and we get to know our characters and stuff, and then we hear the radio comes to life and a voice says, you know, the 9th guest is death and whatever, and there's kind of a mystery where the two leads have to team up to find out, you know, what's going on, and there's a few little twists and stuff. But the radio is what tells them you know, what's going to happen to them, and they have to investigate that at one point. And so inside the radio is a record player, and the records like have an auto change thing set up, and I was like, that's pretty advanced. I don't know, you know, that much about like tech from different eras, but it felt like a really clever sort of way to set things up, and to kind of, you can't just follow a cable to find the man behind the wall or the man behind the curtain who's doing it all. It sort of shows this kind of pre-planning and stuff like that. So I thought that was cool. And I mean, an auto-changing record player hidden inside a radio it's kind of cool even now, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess that would have been kind of exciting at the time. I don't know. Anybody can jump in the comment section if they know more about, you know, musical sound tech stuff through time, because obviously it's not my wheelhouse. But yeah, I feel like this film it's kind of satisfying. Like, as I said, like the acting's not maybe the best, but there's some nice dresses, and there's some nice sort of character things, and some little twists and turns and misdirects and stuff. And then there's the sort of twist ending. So it's good fun, maybe like a Sunday afternoon film, you know, like a rainy afternoon or something like that. You can curl up and watch it. I really enjoyed the visual kind of style of the whole thing. And I thought the tech aspect kind of made it feel a bit, I was gonna say modern, but it's not. It's like 1934. You know what I mean? It's kind of an interesting time period. So yeah, I think this one is in the public domain as well, so you should be able to find it pretty easily if you do want to stream it. And yeah, that's kind of it for this one. There's not, the actors are not super, you know, didn't get up to anything crazy, so I don't have any side stories to tell you, which I always love to when I find them. But yeah, so thank you for joining me for another movie. I hope you like this one. You guys can find me on social media, generally like TikTok, Instagram, and I think most of those things I'm just craven wild. A lot of my content isn't movie specific. I do have a little podcast that I put out in seasons. It's just about life and stuff like that, and that is Tea and Scandal, which you can find. I do have a coffee account. Again, that's Craven Wild if you feel like buying me a coffee, which I feel really weird asking you guys that. So obviously there's no pressure or anything like that. Still figuring coffee out, but yeah. I also do have Twitch, so I'm gonna try and get into being on Twitch a little bit more. I just kind of do fun stuff. I think mostly what I've been playing is Cats Organized Neatly, so I'm not like a big gamer. I do a lot of like little crafting things and stuff like that, so if you want to come over and have a little chat to me on Twitch sometime, you can find me on there as well. So yeah, I just thought I'd share my socials because I actually haven't shared them with you guys in a good while, I think. Although they're probably in my bio or something like that. I should probably check. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. It's always fun to hang out with you lot, and I'll have another movie for you guys again. I'm just gonna say it soon.